Weekend Calling with Claire Kett on N Live Radio. And I'm joined by Philip Wright, who is the original drummer and lead singer with the 70s hit band Paper Lace. Welcome, Philip.
Nice to be here.
Good. Are you well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. So let's talk about how Paper Lace first came about.
Yeah, initially I joined a band called Music Box, and that was a band based in Derby. And at the time I wasn't playing in another band. I'd just seen an advert in the paper, drummer, singer required, just backing vocals, that sort of thing. And a friend of mine said, I've seen this band, they're pretty good, why don't you... And I was, as I say, I was an apprentice at the time. And this was in...
What were you doing as an apprentice?
I was apprentice toolmaker.
Right. So what sort of tools did you make?
Well, moulding tools and press tools.
Anything that could be useful for repairing any musical equipment ever? No. Oh, well, never mind.
Nothing to do with musical instruments.
Not one.
And, so my a fellow apprentice, in actual fact, who got a car, because I didn't have a car at that time, he drove me over and I met these guys. We went to a top room of a pub where they got all the stuff set up, and we played together and sang a bit and all the rest of it. And they liked what I did, so I was in the band. And in 1969, I came out of my apprenticeship at 21, and then I got married, and we got a residency, basically, turned professional, got a residency in Rochdale, at one of the Mecca Tiffany's places.
Oh, yeah. So they must have been quite popular at the time. Lots of people going out and dancing and meeting each other.
Yeah, but it was every night of the week. They were amazing and rammed at the weekend.
Nice.
And in sort of 1970, we morphed into Paper Lace.
Right.
Basically.
So where did the name come from? Like, who came up with this name? And
yeah, well, the pianist at the time, he said... He said, we let's have a new name and a new start and all the rest of it. We'll come out of Rochdale, sort of all guns blazing and get some work and all the rest of it. And because it's never in your mind about making, being a terrific success.
So that you just were doing it for the fun, really, to begin with.
We were in a band, that's what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
And early 20s. So we just came out of it. We were looking in newspapers and things, in racing newspapers, names of horses. When you look at names of horses, there's some great names for bands in there.
I suppose there are, really.
But,
what a good idea!
But this guy, he looked at it in a book of things to make, and he said, "Oh, look at this! Just a hobby." We're just flicking through pages and things, and he said, "Things to make. This is where you fold a piece of paper, tear bits out of it, and when you open it up, it's a doily, and it's paper lace." And we all sort of looked at one another and said, "Well, that sounds quite well. The name sounds all right. Rolls off the tongue." So. That was it.
So you thought that summed up your band then? Because you're making things, discovering, creative, all of those things.
Yeah, and then everybody obviously connects it with Nottingham because that's the lace industry.
Oh, the industry. And you're from Nottingham, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right.
Perfect. Oh, I love that. Brilliant. So tell me about Opportunity Knocks then, because this kind of really helped thrust you into success as a hit maker, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It was more. It was very influential in what we were going to do.
And this was kind of like primetime TV talent show. Everybody would be tuning in, kind of thing.
They had a 7 million viewing audience.
It's not bad, is it?
No, it's quite good.
It's all right.
And at the time, well, in 1970, we took an audition, and that was in Nottingham.
Yeah.
And that was at what was then the Bridgeford Hotel on Trent Bridge, big building.
What's it now?
There's about 1,000 people there.
Oh, right.
On this audition day.
Mm.
And now it's been changed. It's just been actually refurbished completely, and it's all major apartments, quite expensive.
Okay.
Overlooking the Trent and everything. It's all very nice.
Nice, yeah.
And we did this audition, and we knew that by the looks on their faces and them saying, "Oh, can you do something else?" So we did another one. We did about 4 or 5 songs, and they said, "We'd like to have you on the show." And we thought, "Wow, fantastic!" So after
did you go out and celebrate?
Well, after 6 months, when we hadn't heard anything, we thought maybe, nothing here. So.
Did you imagine then you'd sort of hear overnight, or something like that? I guess you thought, like, this is it, and
next week we'll be on the show.
Yeah. And did nobody sort of say to you, it might take a while before you hear anything, or maybe you didn't ask? You just
said nothing.
No.
So in 1973, we had a letter from the
good old
TV
pigeon
people.
Post.
Yeah, snail mail. Yeah. And they said, "We want you on the show." And
nice.
We thought, do we want to be on the? We'd made some records. They'd not done anything. But we were into recording, and we were quite a successful band. We were working 7 nights a week, and we said, do we really need it at this point in our careers? Being really silly about it all, because we thought then we harked back to the time when we found out that they got a 7 million viewing capacity, and we said, look, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah,
how many gigs do you have to do to get through to 7 million?
Could be a few years.
So we went on the show, and that was it. We won it 3 times, I think.
So what was the experience like on the show? How did it kind of work with, because it was different acts, wasn't it, that would go on?
But it
How
was
did
variety.
that work with, like a variety show kind of thing? Who was the host at the time?
It was a guy called Huey Green.
Right, yeah. So
you're obviously too young.
Yeah. oh, Huey, yeah. How did it work with did you have, because I imagine it would all be live because you had the studio audience.
Completely, yeah.
And then how did that work with crossing over, like the changeover to get the acts on, and then can't imagine much of a sound check or anything like that?
No, well, they got things sorted. I mean, prior to letting the audiences in, they'd get several microphones sorted out.
Yeah.
And we were probably the only band on that week.
Oh, right.
So we're the only thing
Good.
they could set up for us, you see. And then they might have a comedian on, they might have a juggler. Well, sound check for a comedian or a juggler is very simple.
Yeah, indeed. So did you get a rehearsal then beforehand?
No, not really. No, nothing like that. No, they before the audience came in, I think we got into position and they worked out sort of cameras and this, that, and the other, what was going to happen. And basically you had a sponsor who sat down with Huey Green initially, just around a table, and he talked about the band, and he said how his connection, the sponsor was this connection with the band, and it was actually a Labour councillor that who was leader of the Nottingham Labour City Council at the time, and he was a good friend of mine, and he'd been and seen the band, and he thought we were great and all the rest of it. So he was a very good orator. He could speak, and that's what we wanted, somebody who could sit down with Huey Green, have a conversation, explain what the band was doing, and then introduce the band. And this is Paper Lace. And then you do your bit, and then the audience would clap, and they had a gizmo, like a clock. And there was a guy sitting behind it, and he would wind up this clock to give an indication of the volume of the clapping.
That's hilarious.
In the studio. So
Wow.
Today it would be a high-tech thing. It would be,
yeah, you'd press a little button, wouldn't you? You choose
it would,
who you
and
want
it
to
would give
win.
you a reading. But he was,
Clapometer.
yeah,
Love
that
it.
was it. That's it, clapometer. And there was no sort of fiddle with it, because he was just indicating
Yeah, it's just
how
like
loud
who enjoyed it the
audience was
most.
clapping. And
Yeah.
it had no bearing on what would happen next. And what people had to do was put pen to paper and send postal votes in.
I see. And so
There's
and then you got voted back on the show again. That way you kept going back on.
That's right.
And what was it like just as it was about to be broadcast and you knew you were just about to be introduced? What was that like, adrenaline wise?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was live show. We had the same feeling later on when we were a hit band and we were doing Radio 1 clubs, which were live completely, and they used to strap two mics together, and one would be
bit of gaffer tape.
That's right. And one would be for inside the hall, and the other one would be outside broadcast. But you know that everything you said or did was going out.
It was
live.
out there. Incredible.
It's the realization of that fact gets the adrenaline going no end.
And because you're the lead singer, but you're also the drummer, because you don't see that often, do you? Really, it's not your standard lineup with a band. Not really. I imagine that must be hard to kind of sing and rat-a-tat-tat. I don't know. How do you find that? That must have been something you've always done, but
it
does have, it's difficulties.
Yeah, it's difficult when you're. A lot of people find it difficult when you're doing a strict time to us, and then you've got to sing sort of around
cross
that.
It, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of people can't do it because of that.
Yeah.
But as I say, it's something really I've always done. Although I didn't actually start singing until I was doing backing vocals and all the rest of it, and I didn't really start singing till just before I joined the Music Box, which was in '67.
Yeah. And so
from that point,
when you kind of set yourself up on the stage, and because you want to be seen, normally you stick the drummers at the back, don't you? You know, the lead singers prancing around at the front, but we have to see you now. You're important.
Yeah, well, that's the setup, and it is a very different setup to most bands, because we've got a keyboard player. Dave Majors, he's the keyboard player in the band at the moment, and then there's myself.
Is that like a stage name, Majors, because of the keyboard?
No, he's Dave Major. That's his name.
Oh.
Keyboard player.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, he plays other chords, not just magic chords. And then we're sort of level and right on the front of the stage, and then Cliff and Phil, the guitarist, they're in the middle. So it's a different look.
Yes, it is.
And it is quite when the curtain goes up and people see it, and then we come on stage, that it is a bit of a this is different, So we've got an impact like that anyway.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, because you're kind of drawn then. I think you're always drawn to watching drummers anyway, but then to be singing as well, and then having all, the harmonies with the guitar players and, you Mr. Major and all that. That's, that's a fantastic setup, isn't it? I want to talk about the hits now on the Top of the Pop days.
All right.
So after Opportunity Knocks, and you all, you had this hit, wasn't it the late Peter Callender's wife who saw you on that, who knew of the song that might work for you?
Yeah, well, she's Connie, Peter Callender's wife. She was a fan of Opportunity Knocks, and she was watching it, and she knew that Mitch and Pete had written this song, and they'd got a song ready, and they didn't know whether to just give it to a band that was already established, or whether they could use the song to actually launch another band, a new band. And she looked at us and said, have you seen these? Have you seen these? And brought us to their attention. And she said, look, they're young guys, they've got a great sort of, they look good, they're dressed fairly well and all the rest of it. Why don't you get in touch with their management and see what they're doing? And they did. And then we went to see Mitch. He lived in Mill Hill at the time, and we went down to his house, introduced ourselves, and all the rest of it. We got on really well. He's a very funny guy. I mean, he's a gag writer. He's an amazing, very funny bloke, and he writes jokes for people and all the rest of it, as well as music.
Songwriting, yeah.
I mean, he's the musical side of it, and Peter Callender, God rest his soul, he was the lyricist,
right?
And they'd had fortunes,
loads of hits, didn't they? Yeah,
no, absolutely, yeah. I mean, they were responsible for back in the 60s, sort of Freddie and the Dreamers, all their hits, Jerry and the Pacemakers, all their hits, and the different bands written by Cliff Richard, Georgie Fame.
You must have been thrilled then to be approached by them.
Well, yeah. I mean, we were in awe of these people because we knew of their success and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And Mitch got on the piano and he tonked this song out, and he said, "What do you think?" And we were sort of, well, yes, okay. He says, "Yeah, but there's this," and then he says that he talked about the whistling bit. We were, yeah, oh yeah. Is that how it starts? And he says, "Yeah, that's how it starts." And it starts over a snare drum, like a marching band. And we said, "Oh, yeah." And he said, "But other than that, we've got a whole idea about how to sell the song. You're going to be dressed in union uniforms, and you're going to have. We're going to do lots of shoots, outdoor shoots with." So that you get the right publicity, and you're all going to be in costume, and from that day it was sort of massive sort of effort to get it in, and then it eventually went to number one.
Yeah,
and that was.
What did that feel like for you when you found out you were at number one?
Yeah, well, it was quite amazing.
Yeah,
and you imagine all sorts of things. You sort of think, well, I'm going to be a millionaire. That's number one. You're going to make so much money. Little did we know.
Oh. But you're in a band because you love being in a band, right?
Yeah, that's right. And this was the cherry. This was a cherry on the top, really, to get that sort of
That
success.
is amazing, isn't it? So what was it like playing on Top of the Pops? Because I have this image that all of the different artists hang out in some sort of TV green room at the back and talk about their experiences of playing, touring, fans, costumes. Is it like that?
It's sort of like that. It's a little bit more remote because you all had a dressing room.
Yeah, nice.
And you went into the green room, if you like, because they all have green rooms, before you went onto the show. Yeah. And it was a complete day. It was did it on a Wednesday, and it started at sort of 10 o'clock sharp, and everybody had to get there, and you did sort of a rehearsal. There was lots of sorting out to do because we used to hire equipment rather than take our own equipment there. We'd hire equipment in, so you had to check whether everything was right, and then you'd set it all up. The roadies set it all up, whatever, and then you do a rehearsal. They play the track, and in those days, what happened? They used to play a track, and you used to sing live to it.
Okay, right. So your vocal was totally live.
Yeah.
Okay.
Most of the time, not everybody did it, but we chose to look. We can do it. We can sing the thing, and I say, well, I never have any problem with my voice. No problem, and we can do it live. But there was a musicians' union man there, and at the time, I cannot remember why, but you couldn't use the record or the track without the vocal. You had to go in on the Wednesday. You had to go to a studio and re-record the song.
No.
Yeah.
Without
you had to re-record a backing track and bring the tape back because it was all on tape. Bring the tape back to the studio and do it. But everybody knew but you wouldn't get very good results because it would be all too rushed.
Yeah.
What had taken maybe a week to record, they expected you to do it in half an hour.
Wow, that's
So
insane.
the fiddle was that the guy and the musicians union guy, he used to travel around. He used to let him know which studio you were at, and he used to come and see whether you were actually doing it. So you'd all actually be in the studio and you'd be doing something. Then when he went, you'd swap the tapes. Mitch would just alter, make it sound a little bit different, but alter a mix of the original record, and we'd give that into the technicians at the studio. But everybody used to do it. I mean, it was totally against all the rules, breaking all the rules. But everybody used to do it, and it was oh dear, it was such a laugh.
Yeah.
I mean, what you were saying about everybody chatting together in the green room and all the rest of it, there was a lot of that camaraderie there because everybody that was on Top of the Pops, you were all at the same stage.
Yeah.
There was no
just
competition.
To be supportive and just great fun.
Nothing to prove,
No.
I mean,
you're at the number one spot. Maybe they wanted to be at the number one spot, but
well, yeah. But we were on. I mean, when we were at number one, Queen were at number 6.
Gosh, you see, that's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, their first single was 70's of Rye in '74, and I had the pleasure of meeting Brian May some years later. And a guy that was in the band, one sort of lineup of the band, a fellow called Jamie Moses. He played with the Brian May band and Queen, and I went to see them on one particular occasion. And he got me, he put me on the guest list. And he said, come back and meet Brian and all the guys, and all the rest of it. So I went and met Brian May, and I said, this isn't the first time that I've met you, actually. I said, we met in 1974 on Top of the Pops. And I said, we were on there with the Wombles and Shawaddy Waddy and several other people. And Brian May he said, stop. He said, don't say anymore. He says, I'm starting to remember it all.
Fantastic.
Nice guy, really nice guy. But there was, we sat around talking, and we were quite friendly with Shawaddy Waddy because they're from Leicester, and we were talking, saying, and one of the drummers in Shawaddy Waddy said to me, he said, "Have you met these when Queen were going through their bit?" He says, "Have you met these? Have you spoken to them at all?" So I said, "No." I said, "You really can't get near them because they've got an entourage that sort of protects them and all the rest of it. You couldn't actually talk to any of them." And he said, they've certainly not got the right attitude. He says, you've got to get on with people, and if you don't have that attitude, you're not going to be in this business for very long. Those are the things you say at Queen.
Great advice. Let's talk about your other number one hit. This was number one in America. Now, how difficult it must be to get a number one hit in America. So that was huge, wasn't it? The night Chicago died. So what do you think made this such a success in the US?
Well, I mean, I didn't know until some years later that that their first line troops, the sort of fire service, police, and ambulance service,
like first responders,
were big supporters of the night Chicago died, because contrary to sort of popular belief, it's not about Al Capone. It's about a cop and his family, and he's going out, and it's the troubles that he has to deal, the things he has to deal with, and then come home to his family, and the song tells the story of him going out one night, coming home, and a lot of police were killed, but he's come home to his family, you see. And and that hit a chord with the first line emergency services. And in actual fact, just after 9/11, the Night Chicago Died had a resurgence. It became popular again.
Wow.
And
yeah.
it is a popular record over there.
Yeah.
And I do answer lots of questions from the States, lots of different people sort of write and email and comment on YouTube and stuff like that. And I always answer questions, anything they want to know. And it is quite amazing that they still, remember it, because they didn't realise that we were a bit Brit band. They thought we were Americans.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Oh.
But yeah, it hit me how big it was. Because it reached number 3 in the UK. But we still did the top of the pops. We were on top of the pops probably 15, 20 times during 1974.
Fantastic.
And we did The Night Chicago Died, and somebody who I had admired like really to an nth degree was Elton John.
Oh yeah.
And he was on, I think, I'm not quite sure, I think it was either Your Song or Daniel, can't remember which, that he was actually promoting at the time. But on one occasion, I could see him coming over, and he was coming up to me, and I thought, oh, great, what's this is Elton John. And he came up and he put his hand out and said, shook my hand and said, absolutely fantastic, congratulations on your number 1 in America, because he was big, really big in America, and he was trying to get, sort of number 1 in the UK at the time. Very difficult.
Yeah. Wow. Elton
John.
And
he's always been an advocate of young musicians and all the rest of it, and helping people. And he's doing something at the moment, in actual fact, about the music industry and the state it's in because of COVID and all the rest of it.
It is in a terrible state, isn't it? Because I guess you used to touring all the time, like still now with the original 70s Paper Lace Band, and that's all stopped, hasn't it? But how brilliant now that you've just released a new single.
Yeah, that's
so tell me about this. So this is an updated version of Manfred Mann song.
Well, in actual fact, Manfred Mann had the hit in ’69, and prior to that, prior to us meeting Mitch Murray and Peter Gallagher, who are the writers of the song, in actual fact, how's that for interesting? In 1973, we released Ragamuffin Man. So we had that as one of our singles. It was about the third attempt to sort of get a hit, but it flopped completely. It didn't get airplay. It didn't get anything. And now people say, oh, they've done a cover of Manfred Mann's version, but all we've done is rearranged our version. Really, that's how we looked at it. That's how we looked at it. And we've been getting some really good reports about it.
Yes, fab. Sounds great, doesn't it? It looks like you must have had fun recording it then. How did you record it in these conditions?
Well, we did it just before lockdown.
Great.
We did a lot of... we decided that we'd look at the act and look at the set, and everything that we do is either a single or an album track by Paper Lace. And we do an hour plus generally as a set.
Yeah.
And we decided that you perform these songs over and over and over, and you tend to stray away from the original sort of sound of it. And sometimes people are disappointed. I've been to bands where they sing the song, but it doesn't sound like the original. And there's certain things that you have to include.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
To actually strike a tune with the audience, and they say, "Oh, it's fantastic! It sounds just like the record," and all the rest of it. And that's what you try to achieve. So we decided to go over everything, and in some of the cases, we did about 4 or 5 re-recordings of songs that were on an album or a single, and Ragamuffin Man was one of them. And that's how it turned out, and we were quite amazed at it. We did it old school recording,
Ah.
where most of us were in the studio. I think we did a bass, drums, and a guitar, sort of all at the same time, and then we put bits on, and then we did the vocals.
Wow, great.
But it was sort of old school, yeah.
Yeah, not still on an old tape machine though, not that old school.
No.
So what's next for you then? You're continuing to do some more recordings?
Yeah. I mean, Phil Hendricks, the guitarist, he's been at home recording and doing bits, and we've been passing tracks backwards and forwards via the internet. And he's actually produced his own album.
I know. Radio Calling.
Yeah, that's right. Great album.
It's fantastic, isn't it? I love it. Yeah.
There isn't a song that you don't like on it.
No, I know.
It's so good.
Yeah, it really is good. Yeah.
So, he's a really big friend of mine. In fact, the story when he joined the band, Cliff and myself, about 2009, we decided to sort of regroup and look at what we're doing and relaunch the band, if you like.
Yeah.
And I said, we've got to find a guitarist from somewhere, and all the rest of it. And at that time, Phil was doing the because it as a sort of not spare time thing, but as another string to his bow, if you like. He does sleeve notes for CDs, and he was doing sleeve notes for 2 albums that I didn't know, but they were going to be re-released on CD. And he was doing the sleeve notes, and he rang me up and said, I didn't know him then, and he rang me up and said, "Do you mind if I give you a call from time to time? Because I've looked at some of the sleeve notes on your albums, and there's a lot of conflicting sort of information there, and I'm determined to get it right. So can I ring you up and sort of check on everything?" I was like, yeah, no problem at all, no problem. And at that time, I wasn't on Facebook or anything like that, but I joined Facebook soon after, and it's like everybody that you've been in contact with gets a friend request, or a sort of automatic friend request.
That's right.
And he said, and he got in touch and he says, "Oh, I see you're on Facebook and all the rest of it." He says, "What are you doing now?" And I said, "I'm putting a band together. I'm looking for a guitarist." And he said, "Oh, I play guitar a bit." And I said, "Oh, do you?" He says, I said, "Do you sing as well?" He says, "Yeah, sing. He says, "I could, I'm sure I could fit in." I said, he said, "I like your music and all the rest of it." So I said, "Well, we ought to meet up just to get the feel of each other." And he lives, about 2.5 hours away in Lincolnshire. And I said, "What about meeting halfway?" So we met in Grantham in a coffee bar in Grantham. And we sat down and we were there. We had about 10 cups of coffee and we were talking over about 3 hours. And at the end of the meeting, I said, "Well, I don't know about you. I don't know what you feel about me." I said, "But you seem to me the perfect guy, absolutely." And he said, "Oh, okay then." I said, "Look, we'll keep in touch, and I'll bring up a rehearsal room in Nottingham. You can come over, and I said, just swat up on what we do, and these are the keys and all the rest of it." And I told Cliff, it was the other original member. He's the bass player, and I said, "I found the guitarist." And he said, "Oh, great! That's really good." He said, "I said he's just the person." I said, "You're going to love him. He's a really nice bloke." And Chris said, "What does he play like?" And I said, "I haven't got the foggiest idea. I just don't know. I haven't got a clue." I said, "But he's coming to rehearsal." And Cliff was like, he looked at me strangely, and I said, "Look, I'm giving him the job. He's in the band, and I don't know what he's playing."
Oh, I love that story.
When we met up, I hired this rehearsal studio in Nottingham, and we played through a few songs, And Cliff said, "Well, you were right about this. He's amazing, isn't he?" I said, "Yeah, he's amazing."
You just
And
knew
we started singing some harmonies, and the guy who owned the studio, the rehearsal rooms, there's a microphone in all his rehearsal rooms, so he listens in occasionally to see what's going on. And he came in he says, "Can I interrupt?" And I said, "Yeah, what's?" He says, "The vocal harmonies sound amazing." He says, "How long have you been together?" And I said, "About 9:15 this morning." And it was that was it. It was just amazing from that point.
Your vocal, you're absolutely right. They do blend so well, and it's that kind of magic, isn't it? You've got to get that right.
You know when something's right. It is. Yeah. It just hits you, and all you do is laugh about it because it is quite invigorating.
Yeah. And it's really important as well in a working band, I should imagine, to have that kind of camaraderie as well. You've got to gel as humans, haven't you? You've got to kind of feel, each other's personality and soul, and just know that you're on the same page.
Yeah.
You don't want any band politics, do you?
No. I mean, we're all. I mean, we later found Dave, the keyboard player, and he's a songwriter as well. He writes amazing songs, and just doesn't know how to get things out there. He's been doing it. He's got absolutely a mountain of songs, and they're all very memorable and maybe a little bit more involved, maybe a little bit too involved, but they are superb songs. He's a great musician, and we did before lockdown. I think we did about 25 gigs in 2019, 2020.
Wow.
2019 prior to lockdown. And it was all looking very good for 2020.
Were they the sort of like 70s revival nights, that kind of thing? Or yeah,
that sort of thing.
And play with other bands as well on the bill.
Yeah, you're on a bill with we played with end of people, Rubettes, all people from that sort of era.
Yeah. So it must be really difficult now, as it is for all musicians and crew members, to have that taken away from you, because there's nothing quite like performing live, is there?
No, I mean, it is. I think I speak for all musicians. It's a bit like we're a forgotten army completely, because there's been, apart from working as a sort of sole trader and trying to inch things and get money from the government, whatever, but they certainly have left most musicians high and dry.
Yeah.
And I know lots of my lots of chaps who I have toured with have gone back and have got sort of proper jobs, if you like.
Yeah.
Doing something else just to survive,
just to get by.
Get over it. Yeah.
Now let's hope it's not too long before things can start to go back again, and we can, because I can't imagine it being in the same way to begin with live music. Anytime soon, people having hundreds of people in a room, all sweating and chanting together. I just can't see that happening this year.
It's against all the rules, isn't
it? Just, I mean, it's brilliant, isn't it? We all miss it. Oh, crikey, we do. But and it's hard, isn't it? It's tough. As you say, musicians have had to go and, just find any form of work to get by. But the thing that I think is the most sad is that when you're an artist or when you're a performer, it's that side of that passion that you kind of just have to do it, don't you, for your art. It's something that's like you said, you're not in it for the money. Yes, you've had these amazing hits and what a fantastic career, but the idea of being in a band, that was what it was about. You just wanted to play music.
Yeah, the drug is the instant appraisal at what you do. So it's an audience going, "Oh, fantastic!"
Yeah,
I mean, there's not. I don't know of any other form of art where you get an instant appraisal of what you've done, and it's a performance by somebody gets an instant applause or not at the end of it. Whereas if you're a painter, you've got to put in an exhibition. It's a while
Yes, it
before
takes
anybody
time.
appreciates what you've actually done.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very difficult.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, just it's very frustrating. I mean, I know a lot of people that are doing sort of uh, from their homes are doing little performances.
Yes, yeah, a lot of live streams happening. That is good to see. Obviously, you don't have that feeling back, do you? You haven't got that them and us, that audience reaction.
You just got to imagine that there's someone out there.
You've got to just talk to nobody, but you know that there are people listening, and it's giving them joy. And I think that's a good way of still trying to perform and just keep it alive as best you can. But when things do open up again as we want them to be, what is next for you as a band? Are you still going to be doing these sort of 70s revival type tours, or are you going off on tour somewhere? What are your plans for the future?
Yeah, well, we've got quite a few things that we've got something happening, heaven knows when, but something happening in the States. And
great.
We toured Australia in 2017. And we've been asked to go back there.
Nice.
And also we've got in 2022, we've got a trip to Canada. That's in the book at the moment.
So I guess these things just sort of have to keep being postponed and put back to sort of the whenever.
Yeah.
But you must still have like a massive loyal fan base who, people keep wanting to come out and see what you're up to.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And I hear from them on a daily basis. Basically, I mean, a lot of the remarks and comments about the single, I stuck it on Facebook and I stuck a little bit of a promo video with it.
Yeah.
And everybody said, "Oh, fantastic! Yeah, that's can't wait!" And
that must feel good as well, because you're doing the right thing. People are just waiting to see you play again.
Yeah, and if you post, we got a lot of video stuff from the Australian tour, and I've been chopping that up and sticking it on in bits just to give people a taste of what it was like, a year ago, 2 years ago, whatever.
Incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the space of time that's happened between performing, your last gig and the next one is, and you still don't know really whether there's going to be anything happening at the end of this year.
No.
I mean, I have, not to be too down, but I don't think things, certainly in the entertainment business, are ever going to be the same again.
No, that's the danger, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, because it's okay. It's okay. Artists sort of saying, "Well, it's okay. We're on stage. You could put a screen in front, whatever, clear screen. You can do anything."
How's that going to work? Yeah, that's going to get a bit steamy, isn't it?
Yeah, but the thing is, it's an audience which are very much an integral part of your performance.
Indeed, they are.
Having the confidence to come into a small space, if you like, a theatre, or a hall.
Yeah.
And it's,
And how would they manage that? Are they going to make people sit, 2 meters apart? No one can have any interaction with anyone else. Yeah. No singing allowed. No. Yeah, it does make you wonder when we're going to get that feeling, of a proper live gig. I know they've done a few things. They've tried with bringing in cars, haven't they, into these fields and doing it like that. And you're having a little car. So, the little drive-in performances. But that's got to feel weird if you're the actual artist.
Yeah.
Because, where's that energy? Where's the spirit?
All you can do is beat your horn.
Beat your horn, put your indicator on or whatever for flashing lights. But it can't be the same.
No.
So I guess for now, then you're going to keep on recording.
Yeah, I will be singing and drumming as long as I can.
Well, of course you must. Yeah.
Well, I've got my kit's set up permanently.
Is it?
But the thing is, the only reason I haven't done any performances from home is nobody wants to hear a drummer. Drumming and singing. It sounds like somebody trying to make a shed.
Well, you are a tool maker. So that might be what we think you're doing. You're making your shed. Philip, it's been absolutely brilliant to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining me. Best of luck with everything with Ragamuffin Man. It sounds awesome. You know, it's getting loads of airplay, so that's going to do great, I'm sure. And with all your new recordings and all your future shows, whenever, wherever that may be. But I've really enjoyed talking to you today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you.